The morning sun painted golden streaks across the tall windows of Harrison Enterprises, one of the most powerful business empires in West Africa. Inside his corner office, Marcus Harrison sat in his leather chair, his salt and pepper hair catching the light as he dialed his son's number. His calloused hands, weathered from decades of building his company from nothing, trembled slightly with anticipation. "Dad," came the warm voice on the other end. "Andre," Marcus said, his deep voice thick with emotion. "3 more months, son. 3 more months and you'll be Dr. Andre Harrison." Andre laughed, the sound carrying across continents. "I know, Dad. I can hardly believe it myself." Marcus leaned back, closing his eyes. He remembered the little boy who used to sit in this same office, pretending to sign important papers. Now that boy was a man of 28, brilliant and accomplished, finishing his medical degree in London. But something weighed on Marcus's heart. "Son, you remember what we discussed about finding a wife?" There was a pause. "Dad, I haven't forgotten." "Good," Marcus continued, choosing his words carefully. "Because I've been watching 2 young women here at the company, both exceptional, educated, hardworking, respectful. Either would make a fine wife." Andre was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Marcus sit forward. "Dad, what if I came home differently?" "What do you mean?" "What if I came home as nobody, just a regular worker, maybe a security guard?" Andre's voice grew thoughtful. "I want to know who loves me for me, not for your name or money. I've seen too many people change when they learn who my father is." Marcus felt his throat tighten. His son had his wisdom, his careful heart. "You're just like I was at your age," he said softly, "questioning everything, testing the world." "So you'll help me?" Andre asked. Marcus smiled, pride warming his chest. "I'll arrange everything. But son, be careful. The truth always reveals itself and sometimes it hurts." "I know, Dad, but I'd rather face truth than live with beautiful lies." After they hung up, Marcus sat alone in his office, staring at the framed photo on his desk. His late wife smiled back at him, her gentle face frozen in time. She'd been gone 5 years now, but her wisdom still guided him. She would have loved this plan, would have laughed at their son's cleverness. He pressed the intercom. "Send for Keisha, please." Minutes later, Keisha Roberts walked in. She was a striking woman of 32, her dark skin glowing with health, her natural hair styled in elegant twists. She wore a simple navy dress, carried herself with quiet confidence, and had the kind face that put everyone at ease. She'd worked in accounting for 4 years, never missing a day, never complaining, always bringing warmth to the office. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice gentle. "Keisha, please sit." Marcus gestured to the chair across from him. "I want to talk to you about something personal." Her eyes widened slightly, but she sat without hesitation, hands folded in her lap. "My son Andre is graduating soon. He's coming home." Marcus watched her face carefully. "I've been watching you for years, Keisha. You have character, you have heart. I believe you could make him very happy." Keisha's eyes glistened, but she didn't interrupt. "I'm not forcing anything," Marcus continued quickly. "But when he comes, just be yourself. That's all I ask. Let him see who you really is and we'll see what happens." She smiled, a soft, humble smile. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I'm honored you think of me that way. I'll be myself, that's all I know how to be." "That's exactly why I chose you," Marcus said warmly. Later that afternoon, he called in Vanessa Cole. She swept into the office like a model on a runway, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. At 29, Vanessa was undeniably beautiful, her makeup flawless, her clothes expensive, her confidence filling the room. "You wanted to see me, sir," she smiled, revealing perfect teeth. "Yes, Vanessa, sit down." Marcus studied her as she arranged herself gracefully in the chair, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. He gave her the same speech he'd given Keisha, watching her reaction carefully. Her eyes lit up like fireworks, her smile growing wider with each word. "Oh, Mr. Harrison," she breathed when he finished. "I promise you won't regret this. Your son will be so blessed to have me, I'll make sure of it." Something in her tone made Marcus pause, but he simply nodded. "Just be yourself, Vanessa, that's what matters most." Of course, sir, of course. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Thank you so much for this opportunity. As she walked out, Marcus felt a whisper of doubt, but he pushed it aside. Andre would see clearly. His son had always been a good judge of character. This test would reveal everything. Part 2. 3 weeks later, Andre Harrison stood in his childhood bedroom, staring at his reflection in the mirror. Gone was the polished medical student in designer clothes. Instead, he wore a faded blue security uniform, scuffed black shoes, and a worn cap pulled low over his eyes. He barely recognized himself. His father appeared in the doorway, chuckling softly. "My son, the doctor, dressed like this. Your mother would have loved this drama." Andre grinned. "I'm ready, Dad. Where will I be staying?" "The quarters behind the main building. Small room, basic bed, shared bathroom, just like any other security guard." Marcus's eyes twinkled. "You sure about this?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." The next morning, Andre reported to the company gates at 6 o'clock sharp. The head of security, an older man named Thomas, gave him a quick briefing without really looking at him. Just another worker, nobody special. By 8 o'clock, the real employees began arriving. Andre stood by the gate, watching carefully. Some breezed past without a glance. Others nodded briefly. But one woman stopped and smiled. "Good morning," she said warmly. It was Keisha. "Good morning, ma'am," Andre replied, tipping his cap slightly. "You're new, aren't you? I haven't seen you before." "Yes, ma'am, started today." She extended her hand. "I'm Keisha. Welcome to Harrison Enterprises. I hope you'll be happy here." Her handshake was firm and genuine. Her eyes held no judgment, no condescension, just kindness. "Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that." "Just Keisha is fine," she said with a laugh. "We're all workers here. Take care of yourself in this heat, okay? There's a water cooler inside if you need it." She walked on, leaving Andre standing there, warmth spreading through his chest. That simple gesture, that basic human respect, already told him something important. 15 minutes later, another car pulled up. Vanessa stepped out in a stunning red dress that probably cost more than a month's salary. Her perfume reached him before she did. She walked past him like he was invisible, her phone pressed to her ear, her laughter loud and artificial. Andre stood perfectly still, but his mind was working. The test had begun. Over the next few days, patterns emerged. Keisha greeted him every morning, sometimes bringing him a bottle of water or a piece of fruit. "It's so hot today," she'd say simply. "Please stay hydrated." She never made a show of it, never wanted anything in return. Vanessa, meanwhile, began a transformation that fascinated and disturbed him. Her clothes grew tighter, her heels higher, her makeup heavier. She walked through the halls like she already owned the place, her voice rising above everyone else's in the cafeteria. One afternoon, Andre was sweeping near the break room when he overheard her talking to 2 other women. "I'm just saying," Vanessa announced loudly, "some people in this company better start showing me respect. Very soon I'm going to be Mrs. Andre Harrison, the boss's daughter-in-law." The women gasped dramatically. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Mr. Harrison already talked to me personally. It's basically done." She flipped her hair. "And when I'm married, trust me, some people won't have jobs anymore. I'm making a list of everyone who's ever crossed me." Andre's hand tightened on the broom handle. So this was her true nature, revealed when she thought no one important was watching. The next week he witnessed something that made his blood run cold. Vanessa cornered Keisha near the copy room, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Keisha, honey, can we talk?" Keisha looked up from her papers, confusion crossing her face. "Sure, Vanessa, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Vanessa said, examining her nails. "I just think you should know that you're wasting your time. Mr. Harrison talked to both of us, right? But let's be honest. You can't compete with me." Keisha blinked slowly. "I'm not competing with anyone." "Come on," Vanessa laughed harshly. "We both know what this is, but look at you and look at me. I'm everything a rich man wants. You're just ordinary." Andre watched Keisha's face. He expected anger, tears, or retaliation. Instead, she simply smiled sadly. Vanessa, I don't know what you're fighting for, but I'm not your enemy. If Andre likes you, then I'm happy for you. I'm not chasing anyone. Good, Vanessa snapped, because you couldn't catch him anyway. Keisha gathered her papers and walked away with dignity intact, her head high. Andre felt something shift in his chest, something profound and permanent. That grace under pressure, that refusal to be pulled into ugliness, that was strength. That was character. That evening, he went home to his father's house, still wearing his uniform. Marcus was waiting in the study. "How's the drama?" his father asked with a knowing smile. "Dad," Andre said, sinking into a chair, "I've learned more in 2 weeks than I could have learned in 2 years of normal dating. Tell me." Andre described everything, the kindness and the cruelty, the humility and the pride. When he finished, Marcus nodded slowly. "So you already know?" "I think so," Andre admitted. "But I need more time. I need to be absolutely certain before I reveal myself." Marcus stood and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Take all the time you need, son. Truth always rewards patience." Part 3. The morning sun cast long shadows across the company parking lot as Andre swept near the main entrance. He'd been working as a security guard for almost a month now, and the routine had become comfortable. But today felt different. Something electric hung in the air. At 9 o'clock sharp, a sleek black Mercedes pulled into the executive parking space. Andre watched as a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, his shoes gleaming, his presence commanding attention. The front desk receptionist rushed to greet him. "Mr. Harrison sent me," the man said smoothly. "I'm David Mitchell, the new operations manager. He asked me to introduce myself to the staff." Within minutes, word spread through the building like wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone knew that Marcus Harrison had appointed someone to help run things while he gradually stepped back from daily operations. David Mitchell would be the bridge until Andre returned from abroad, or so the story went. Andre watched with quiet amusement as workers scrambled to make impressions. But no one worked harder at it than Vanessa. She appeared in the hallway wearing a dress that seemed painted on, her makeup flawless, her perfume announcing her arrival from 3 doors away. She positioned herself strategically near the executive offices, pretending to review files while actually watching for David. When he emerged from a meeting, she practically materialized in front of him. "Mr. Mitchell," she purred, extending her hand. "I'm Vanessa Cole, Senior Accounts Coordinator. If you need anything at all, anything to make your transition easier, please don't hesitate to ask me. I know this company inside and out." David smiled politely, shaking her hand briefly. "Thank you, Miss Cole. I appreciate that. Please call me Vanessa." She tilted her head, her smile bright as stadium lights. "Perhaps we could schedule a meeting. I could brief you on some key accounts." "I'll have my assistant reach out if needed," David replied smoothly, already moving past her. But Vanessa wasn't discouraged. Over the next few days, she found reasons to appear wherever David was. She brought him coffee he didn't ask for, sent him lengthy emails about minor issues, and laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny whenever he was nearby. From his post near the entrance, Andre observed it all with growing disgust. The same woman who claimed to be waiting for him, who announced to everyone that she'd soon be the boss's daughter-in-law, was now throwing herself at another man without shame or hesitation. One afternoon, as Andre stood by the gate, Keisha walked out carrying a box of supplies for a community outreach program the company sponsored. The box looked heavy, awkward. "Ma'am, let me help you with that," Andre said quickly, reaching for the box. Keisha smiled gratefully. "Oh, Andre, thank you. I was trying to be Superwoman, but this is heavier than I thought." "Where are you taking it?" "My car, just over there. We're donating school supplies to the elementary school in Riverside. It's a poor neighborhood, but those kids deserve good materials just like any other children." Andre carried the box to her modest sedan, noting how she'd filled her own car with donations rather than using a company vehicle to make herself look important. When he set the box in her trunk, she pulled out her wallet. "Here," she said, offering him a $20 bill, "for helping me." Andre stepped back, shaking his head. "No, ma'am, I can't take your money. I was just doing what's right. But you went out of your way. Because I wanted to, not because I expected payment," he smiled. "Besides, what you're doing for those kids is payment enough. Not everyone thinks about communities like Riverside." Keisha's eyes grew moist. She tucked the money away and looked at him carefully. "You're not like other people, Andre. There's something different about you." His heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said softly. "The way you talk, the way you carry yourself. You seem like you've got more going on than this job, like you're here for a reason bigger than just work." Andre felt exposed, seen. But before he could respond, she shook her head with a small laugh. "Listen to me, getting all philosophical. Thank you for your help. You have a good heart." As she drove away, Andre stood in the parking lot, his mind racing. She'd seen through his disguise somehow, not with her eyes but with her spirit. She'd recognized something true in him despite the uniform, the humble position, the performance. That evening, as workers filed out of the building, Andre witnessed something that made his decision crystallize completely. Vanessa emerged from the building, her arm linked through David Mitchell's. They were laughing, standing too close, the air between them charged with something inappropriate. David leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She giggled, swatting his chest playfully. Then, shockingly, David's wife appeared in the parking lot, having come to pick him up. She was a pleasant-looking woman with kind eyes, clearly pregnant. When she saw her husband with Vanessa, her face crumpled. Vanessa stepped back quickly, her expression shifting to innocence. David went to his wife, speaking in low, urgent tones, but the damage was visible. The wife's eyes were wet as she got into the driver's seat, her husband following after throwing Vanessa one last look. Andre felt sick. This was the woman his father had considered for him. This woman who chased whoever seemed powerful, whoever could elevate her status, with no regard for loyalty, morality, or basic human decency. He pulled out his phone and called his father. "Dad, I'm done. I know everything I need to know." Marcus's voice was gentle. "You're certain, more certain than I've ever been about anything in my life. Then come home, son. It's time to end this test." That night, Andre packed his few belongings from the small quarters he'd been living in. He felt lighter somehow, unburdened. The past month had been difficult, humbling, sometimes lonely. But it had given him the greatest gift, clarity. He knew now that real love wasn't loud or showy. It didn't announce itself with designer clothes and calculated moves. Real love was quiet, steady, genuine. It showed up in small kindnesses, in respect given to everyone regardless of status, in character that remained consistent whether anyone important was watching or not. Real love looked like Keisha bringing water to a security guard on a hot day. Part 4. Saturday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine streaming through the windows of Marcus Harrison's mansion. Andre stood in his bedroom, his hands shaking slightly as he buttoned a crisp white shirt. After a month of wearing faded uniforms and scuffed shoes, the expensive fabric felt foreign against his skin. "Nervous?" his father asked from the doorway. Andre turned, managing a smile. "Terrified, actually. What if she hates me for lying? What if she feels betrayed?" Marcus walked into the room, his eyes warm with understanding. "Son, you didn't lie. You just removed the noise so the truth could speak clearly. Keisha will understand that. And Vanessa will understand something too," Marcus said grimly. "Just not the lesson she expected to learn." By 10 o'clock, everything was ready. The living room had been arranged carefully, casual but elegant. Fresh flowers sat in vases, light poured through the tall windows, and the whole space felt peaceful. The doorbell rang at precisely 10:15. Marcus's housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, opened the door to reveal Keisha standing on the porch. She wore a simple yellow sundress, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face free of heavy makeup. She carried a small gift bag. "Miss Keisha," Mrs. Chen said warmly, "please come in. They're expecting you." Keisha stepped inside, her eyes widening at the grandeur of the entrance hall. The marble floors, the crystal chandelier, the original artwork on the walls, all of it spoke of wealth she'd only imagined. Mrs. Chen led her to the living room. Marcus stood immediately, smiling broadly. "Keisha, my dear, thank you for coming." "Mr. Harrison," Keisha said, setting down her gift bag and accepting his warm handshake. "Thank you for inviting me. I brought some of my grandmother's sweet potato pie. I know it's probably nothing compared to what you usually eat, but it's made with love." Marcus's eyes glistened. "That means more than you know. Please sit down. I want to introduce you to someone." Keisha settled onto the sofa, her hands folded nervously in her lap. Then she heard footsteps on the stairs. She looked up and her entire world tilted sideways. Andre walked into the room, but he wasn't the security guard she knew. He wore tailored slacks, an expensive watch, Italian leather shoes. His hair was freshly cut, his face cleanly shaved. He looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. But his eyes, those were the same kind eyes she'd looked into a dozen times at the company gate. "Andre," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He sat down across from her, his own hands trembling slightly. "Hi, Keisha." She looked from him to Marcus, then back again, her mind struggling to put the pieces together. "I don't understand, you're the security guard. You swept the parking lot, you carried my boxes." "I am," Andre said gently. "I was, but I'm also Dr. Andre Harrison, Marcus Harrison's only son." Keisha's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but Andre couldn't tell if they were angry tears or something else. "Why?" she finally managed. "Why would you do that? Why would you pretend to be someone you're not?" Andre leaned forward, his voice earnest and raw. "Because I needed to know who would love me for myself. Not for my father's name, not for money or status, but for who I really am. I've seen too many people change the moment they learn about my family. I've watched relationships crumble under the weight of expectations and greed." Marcus spoke up softly. "It was my idea initially, but Andre wanted it even more than I did. We wanted to see people's true characters." Keisha wiped her eyes, her voice stronger now. "So I was a test. Just some experiment." "No," Andre said quickly, standing and moving closer. "You were never a test, Keisha. Your character was already proven. You've been kind to everyone at that company for 4 years, long before I showed up. You treat the janitors with the same respect you give executives. I saw that immediately. Then, why keep pretending? Because I needed to see if that kindness extended to someone you thought had nothing to offer you. Someone who couldn't advance your career or buy you expensive things." Andre's voice cracked. "And Keisha, every single day, you proved that your heart is pure gold. You brought me water when you thought I was just a security guard. You smiled at me when others walked past like I was invisible. You spoke to me like I was a human being worthy of respect." Keisha stood, pacing to the window. She was quiet for a long moment, her shoulders rising and falling with deep breaths. Andre and Marcus exchanged worried glances. Finally, she turned around. Her face was wet, but she was smiling through her tears. "You know what the crazy thing is," she said, laughing shakily. "I liked you anyway. Even thinking you were just a security guard, I liked you. I thought about you at night. I found excuses to walk past the gate. I told my sister I might be falling for someone who could never give me the life I dreamed of, and you know what I decided?" Andre stepped closer. "What?" "I decided that a good heart was worth more than a fat bank account, that I'd rather struggle with someone real than live comfortably with someone fake." She shook her head, fresh tears flowing. "I was ready to choose you even when I thought you had nothing." Andre closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "That's exactly why I'm choosing you now. Not because you passed some test, but because you showed me what real love looks like. It's not loud or showy. It's not about what someone can do for you. It's about seeing people's souls and loving them anyway." Marcus stood quietly. "Keisha, my son has been waiting his whole life for someone like you. Someone with character, integrity, and a pure heart. You're exactly what this family needs." Keisha looked at Andre, really looked at him. "This is insane. This whole thing is absolutely insane." "I know," Andre said, laughing despite his tears. "But is it too insane for you to give me a chance, to give us a chance?" She was quiet for a heartbeat. Then she squeezed his hands. You carried my boxes, she said softly. You could have been anyone going anywhere doing anything. But you stopped and carried my boxes to help kids in Riverside. That's who you are, uniform or suit, millions or nothing. So yes, Andre Harrison, I'll give you a chance. They stood there, hands clasped, tears and laughter mixing together, while Marcus watched with a full heart. This was the moment he'd hoped for, the moment his late wife would have loved to see. But outside, a black BMW was pulling into the circular driveway. Vanessa Cole had arrived, and she had no idea that her whole world was about to explode. Part 5. The doorbell rang sharply, cutting through the peaceful moment in the living room. Marcus glanced at his watch and nodded. That will be Vanessa, right on time. He looked at Andre and Keisha. Are you two ready for this? Keisha squeezed Andre's hand. We're ready. Mrs. Chen opened the door and Vanessa swept in like a hurricane. She wore a skin-tight red dress that left little to the imagination, heels so high she could barely walk, and enough jewelry to stock a small boutique. Her makeup was theatrical, her perfume overwhelming. Good morning, Daddy Harrison, she sang out, her voice syrupy sweet. She carried an expensive-looking handbag and wore designer sunglasses even though she was indoors. Marcus stood, his face carefully neutral. Vanessa, thank you for coming. Please join us in the living room. Vanessa clicked her way down the hall, her hips swaying deliberately. But when she entered the living room and saw Andre sitting comfortably on the sofa with Keisha, her smile froze. What is that security guard doing here? She demanded, pointing at Andre with one manicured finger. And why is he wearing expensive clothes? Did he steal them? Andre remained seated, perfectly calm. Marcus gestured to a chair across from them. Vanessa, please sit down. There's something you need to know. I'm not sitting anywhere until that thief leaves, Vanessa snapped. He probably robbed someone's house and came here to hide. I warned you, Mr. Harrison. I told you he was trouble. Keisha's jaw tightened, but Andre gently touched her knee, silently asking her to wait. Marcus's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Vanessa Cole, I'd like you to meet my son, Dr. Andre Harrison, the man you've been telling everyone you're going to marry. The color drained from Vanessa's face. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Her handbag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a thud. That's impossible, she finally whispered. He's the security guard. He swept floors. He was poor. He was nothing. He was testing character, Marcus said coldly, and you failed spectacularly. Vanessa's eyes darted around the room, her mind clearly racing. Then, like a switch had been flipped, she dropped to her knees on the expensive carpet. Please, I didn't know. If I had known it was you, Andre, I would have treated you like a king. I would have been so kind. I was just stressed at work, you know how it is. I didn't mean anything I said or did. Andre leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. That's exactly the problem, Vanessa. You only treat people well when you think they can do something for you. You called me poor, useless, a dog. You said my mother was a fool for giving birth to me. Remember? Vanessa's face twisted. I was angry. You insulted me first. I told you the truth, Andre said, that you were acting desperate and entitled, and instead of reflecting on that, you insulted my parents. My mother who's been dead for 5 years, who never hurt a soul in her life. Marcus's voice was hard as granite. You came into my office and lied to my face, telling me my son said I was foolish. You manipulated the story to try to get an innocent man fired. I was confused, Vanessa pleaded, tears now streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Please just give me another chance. I can change. I can be better. Keisha spoke for the first time, her voice steady. Vanessa, do you remember what you said to me in the copy room? Vanessa's eyes widened with panic. You said I was ordinary, that I couldn't compete with you, that I was wasting my time because you were everything a rich man wants. Keisha's smile was sad. But you know what you forgot. Rich men are still just men, and good men don't want beautiful shells. They want beautiful souls. You don't understand, Vanessa said desperately, turning back to Andre. I've worked so hard to get ahead. I grew up with nothing. I watched my mother struggle and suffer. I promised myself I'd never be poor again. I just wanted security. There's nothing wrong with wanting security, Andre said gently. But you pursued it by stepping on other people, by being cruel to those you saw as beneath you, by trying to manipulate and scheme your way into wealth. That's not ambition, Vanessa. That's just ugly. Marcus stood. I'm going to tell you something my late wife told me when I was building this company. She said, Marcus, when you climb a ladder, be kind to everyone you pass on the way up. Because if you fall, those are the same people you'll meet on the way down. You've been unkind, Vanessa, very unkind. But I can change, Vanessa sobbed, mascara running down her cheeks. Please, I'm begging you. Don't throw me away like garbage. I'm not throwing you away, Andre said quietly. I'm just not choosing you. There's a difference. You still have your job, your life, your opportunities. But you won't have me and you won't have access to this family. Vanessa's desperation turned to anger in an instant. She stood up, her face contorted. This is because of her, isn't it? She pointed at Keisha. This plain, boring, ordinary woman who probably doesn't even know how to dress properly. You're choosing her over me. In a heartbeat, Andre said simply, every single time. She's nothing, Vanessa screamed. I'm educated. I'm beautiful. I know how to move in high society. What does she have that I don't? Keisha stood, walking calmly toward Vanessa. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but unshakable. I have peace, Vanessa. I have integrity. I have the ability to sleep at night without plotting against people. I have genuine relationships built on respect, not manipulation. And apparently, I have Andre's heart, which is worth more than all the designer clothes and fancy makeup in the world. Vanessa lunged forward, and for a moment, it seemed like she might actually attack Keisha. But Andre was faster, stepping between them. Don't, he said firmly. Don't make this worse than it already is. Vanessa stumbled back, her chest heaving. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You're going to regret this, she said, venom dripping from every word. When she disappoints you, when she can't keep up with your lifestyle, when she embarrasses you at important events, you'll remember me. You'll remember that I tried to warn you. The only thing I'll remember, Andre said calmly, is that I dodged a bullet. Marcus pressed a button on the wall. Security will escort you out, Vanessa. Please leave with whatever dignity you have left. 2 uniformed guards appeared at the door. Vanessa gathered her handbag with shaking hands, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. You know what? I was sleeping with David Mitchell anyway. He appreciated me. He knew my worth. Marcus's expression didn't change. David Mitchell is married with a pregnant wife. If that's the kind of worth you want to claim, then you're even more lost than I thought. Vanessa's face crumpled. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked out. The door closed behind her with a final, decisive click. The room fell silent. Keisha sank back onto the sofa, her hands trembling now that the confrontation was over. Andre sat beside her, pulling her close. I'm sorry you had to witness that, Marcus said softly, but it was necessary. She needed to understand the consequences of her choices. Keisha leaned into Andre's shoulder. I actually feel sorry for her. All that beauty, all that potential, wasted on bitterness and schemes. That's because you have a good heart, Andre whispered against her hair. Even now, even after everything she said, you still feel compassion. Marcus smiled, his eyes misty. You're exactly what this family needs, Keisha. My wife would have loved you. She always said that true beauty shines from the inside out, and honey, you're absolutely glowing. Keisha laughed through her tears. This is the strangest day of my entire life. Well, Andre said, tilting her chin up so he could look into her eyes, get used to strange. Because if you stay with me, every day is going to be an adventure. Promise? She asked softly. Promise, he said, and kissed her forehead gently. Outside, Vanessa sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Her phone rang. It was David Mitchell. We need to stop seeing each other, he said without preamble. My wife knows. She's threatening to leave. I can't risk my marriage for this. But what about me? Vanessa cried. What about us? There is no us, Vanessa. There never really was, I'm sorry. The line went dead. Vanessa stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her makeup was destroyed, her eyes swollen, her carefully constructed image in ruins. She'd lost everything in one morning. The billionaire's son, the manager, her reputation, her dignity. And as she started her car and drove away from the mansion, one thought haunted her. She'd had a chance at something real. A man who valued character over appearance, who tested for truth instead of accepting surface beauty. And she'd failed because she couldn't see past wealth and status to recognize genuine worth. The security guard she'd mocked had been a king in disguise, and she'd been too blind to see it. Part 6. 3 months passed like a dream. Andre officially returned to Harrison Enterprises, not as a security guard but as the chief medical officer, overseeing the company's new healthcare division. His first act was implementing free health clinics for employees and their families. His second was establishing a scholarship fund for underprivileged children pursuing medical careers. Keisha continued working in accounting, though Andre offered to let her quit if she wanted. Absolutely not, she'd said firmly. I worked hard for my position. I'm not giving it up just because my boyfriend is the boss's son. People already talk enough. And talk they did. The office buzzed with gossip about how the humble accountant had won the billionaire's heart while the beautiful Vanessa had been rejected. Some people were genuinely happy for Keisha. Others whispered that she must have known all along that she'd played some game. Keisha handled it all with the same grace she'd always shown. She came to work early, did her job excellently, and went home without fanfare. She didn't flaunt her relationship or use Andre's name to get special treatment. If anything, she worked harder to prove she deserved her position based on merit alone. Vanessa, meanwhile, had become a ghost in the building. She arrived late, left early, and barely spoke to anyone. The vibrant confidence she'd once displayed had evaporated. She'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Word spread that David Mitchell had transferred to another branch across the country to save his marriage. One afternoon, as Keisha was leaving work, she found Vanessa sitting alone in her car in the parking lot, crying. Keisha's first instinct was to keep walking. This woman had been cruel to her, had tried to humiliate her, had wished terrible things on her. But something made her stop. Maybe it was her grandmother's voice in her head, the woman who'd raised her to love your enemies and pray for those who hurt you. Or maybe it was just her nature, the same kindness that had attracted Andre in the first place. Keisha walked to the car and tapped gently on the window. Vanessa looked up, her face a mess of tears and smudged makeup. For a moment, Keisha thought she'd roll up the window or drive away. Instead, Vanessa slowly opened the door. "What do you want?" Vanessa's voice was broken, nothing like the sharp tone she'd once used. "Come to gloat." "No," Keisha said quietly. "I came to ask if you're okay." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay? I lost everything. My reputation is destroyed. The man I thought I loved was just using me. The man I could have had thinks I'm garbage. And everyone in this building looks at me like I'm a cautionary tale." Keisha leaned against the car. "You know what my grandmother used to tell me," she said. "Baby girl, rock bottom is a good foundation to build on. Sometimes we have to lose everything to figure out what truly matters." "That's easy for you to say," Vanessa snapped. "You got the prince. You got the fairy tale ending." "Did I?" Keisha asked softly. "Or did I just stay true to who I was and let the chips fall where they may? I didn't know Andre was rich, Vanessa. I liked him when I thought he swept floors for a living. That's the difference between us." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore. I've spent so long trying to be what I thought men wanted that I lost myself completely." "Then maybe it's time to find yourself again," Keisha said. "Not for a man, not for status, just for you." "Why are you being nice to me?" Vanessa asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "I was terrible to you." "Because holding on to anger would only poison my own heart," Keisha replied. "And because I think, deep down, you're not a bad person. You're just a hurting person who made bad choices. But it's not too late to make better ones. Vanessa wiped her eyes. I don't deserve your kindness. None of us deserve the kindness we receive, Keisha said gently. That's what makes it grace. She straightened up. I'm not saying we're going to be best friends, but I'm saying you don't have to be my enemy either. You can just be Vanessa, figuring out life like the rest of us. As Keisha walked away, Vanessa sat in stunned silence. That simple act of compassion from the woman she tried to destroy hit harder than any insult or rejection ever could. Meanwhile, Andre was in his father's office, discussing plans for the future. So when are you going to ask her? Marcus said with a knowing smile. Andre grinned. Ask her what? Don't play games with me, boy. I'm your father. I can see it written all over your face. You want to marry that girl. Andre's smile grew wider. I do, but I want to do it right, special, memorable. Your mother and I got engaged at a bus stop in the rain, Marcus said, his eyes distant with memory. We were both broke, soaking wet, shivering. I didn't even have a ring. But when I asked her, she said yes without hesitation. You know why? Why? Because she knew my heart. The fancy stuff came later, but the love was already there. Marcus looked at his son. Don't overthink it, Andre. Just ask her. Everything else is just decoration. That evening, Andre took Keisha to the rooftop garden of Harrison Enterprises. He'd arranged for it to be decorated with simple white lights and fresh flowers. No orchestra, no photographers, no grand gestures. Just them and the stars and the truth between them. Keisha, he began, taking both her hands in his. These past 3 months have been the happiest of my life. You make me want to be better, kinder, more genuine. You see me, the real me, not the title or the money or the expectations. Just me. Tears were already forming in her eyes. I know we haven't been together long, Andre continued. But I've known since the day you brought me water at the security gate that you were different. You were special. You were real. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple but elegant ring. Keisha Roberts, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me based on truth, respect, and love? Will you be my partner in everything, not because of what I have, but because of who we are together? Keisha's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. For a moment she couldn't speak, could only nod frantically. Yes, she finally managed to choke out. Yes, Andre, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They stood there under the stars, holding each other, two people who'd found something rare in a world full of facades and games. I love you, Andre whispered against her hair. I love you too, Keisha whispered back. Security guard, doctor, billionaire, son, whoever you are, I love you. Below them, through the office windows, Vanessa sat at her desk finishing up some late work. She happened to look up and see the two figures on the rooftop, clearly embracing. She watched for a moment and something unexpected happened. She smiled. Not a bitter smile, but a real one, small and sad but genuine. Then she turned back to her computer and finished her work. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to understand what real love actually looked like. Part 7. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Andre and Keisha planned a wedding that reflected who they really were. Nothing too extravagant or showy, but beautiful and meaningful. They chose a small church in Riverside, the same neighborhood where Keisha had grown up and where the community center she volunteered at was located. Marcus tried repeatedly to convince them to have the wedding at a 5-star hotel or his estate. Dad, Andre said patiently, we want the people who matter there, not the people who matter to business. We want Keisha's grandmother's friends, the kids from the community center, our real community. Marcus sighed but eventually agreed, though he couldn't resist paying for everything anyway. At least let me do this much, he pleaded. Your mother would haunt me if I didn't give you a proper wedding. The invitation list was carefully curated. Close family, real friends, and a few colleagues from work including, surprisingly, Vanessa. Are you sure? Andre asked when Keisha added her name. I'm sure, Keisha said softly. She's been different lately, quieter, more humble. I see her volunteering in the community programs now. She's trying to change, Andre. We should acknowledge that. On the wedding day, the small church was packed with people who genuinely loved and supported the couple. Keisha wore a simple but elegant white dress that her grandmother had helped her choose. Andre wore a classic black tuxedo. Neither needed elaborate costumes because their joy was decoration enough. When Marcus walked Keisha down the aisle, since her own father had passed years before, tears streamed down his face. "Your mother would have loved you," he whispered to her. "Thank you for loving my son the right way." Keisha squeezed his arm. "Thank you for raising him to value the right things." The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. The pastor, who'd known Keisha since she was a child, spoke about authentic love that sees beyond surfaces to souls. When Andre and Keisha exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the building. "I promise to see you," Andre said, his voice strong and clear. "Really see you every day for exactly who you are. Not who I want you to be or who others expect you to be. Just you, perfectly imperfect, completely loved." Keisha's voice trembled as she spoke. "I promise to stand beside you, not behind you or in front of you. To celebrate your victories and hold your hand through defeats. To be your partner in building a life that matters, not just looks impressive." When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, the church erupted in cheers and applause that could probably be heard 3 blocks away. At the reception, held in the community center's newly renovated hall, Marcus's wedding gift to the neighborhood, people danced, laughed, and celebrated not just a marriage but a love story that had inspired many. Vanessa attended, sitting quietly near the back. She wore a modest dress, her makeup natural, her behavior humble. She didn't try to draw attention or cause drama. When Keisha noticed her sitting alone, she walked over. "Thank you for coming," Keisha said sincerely. Vanessa stood, her eyes glistening. "Thank you for inviting me. I don't deserve to be here, but I'm grateful." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Keisha said, then smiled. "Well, maybe not everyone, but people who are genuinely trying to grow deserve support." "I am trying," Vanessa said quietly. "I started therapy. I'm volunteering at that shelter you mentioned. I'm learning that my worth isn't tied to a man's bank account or my ability to manipulate situations." She paused. "I'm learning to be the person I should have been all along." "That's beautiful," Keisha said, meaning it. "Keep going. The world needs the real Vanessa, not the fake one." After Vanessa left, Andre came up behind his wife, yes, his wife. It still felt surreal, and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You're incredible, you know that," he murmured in her ear. "Why?" Keisha laughed, leaning back against him. "Because you showed grace to someone who showed you none. Because you're living proof that kindness isn't weakness." "I learned from the best," Keisha said, turning in his arms. "Your father told me stories about your mother, about how she treated everyone with dignity, from CEOs to janitors. I want to honor her memory by living the same way." Andre kissed her forehead. "She would have adored you." Marcus watched them from across the room, his heart full. His son had found not just a wife, but a partner who would help him become an even better man. And more importantly, together they would raise children who understood that character mattered more than currency. That integrity outlasted image. That love built on truth could weather any storm. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, an older woman approached Keisha. She was Mrs. Patterson, who ran the community center. "Baby girl," she said, taking Keisha's hands, "I've watched you grow from a little thing with pigtails to this beautiful woman. And I want you to know something." "What's that, Mrs. Patterson?" "You didn't change when the money came. That's the real miracle. So many people would have forgotten where they came from, forgotten who they were. But you stayed humble, stayed kind, stayed you. That's how I know this love is real and will last." Keisha hugged the woman tightly. "You all made me who I am. This community raised me. I could never forget that." Later that night, as Andre and Keisha drove away to their honeymoon, they passed by Harrison Enterprises. The building stood tall against the night sky, lights still burning in a few windows. "You know what's funny?" Keisha said, watching the building fade in the rearview mirror. "What?" "If you'd shown up as the rich doctor from the start, I probably would have been intimidated. I might have thought you were out of my league. I might have talked myself out of even trying. And if I'd shown up that way, I would have spent years wondering if you loved me or my bank account, Andre replied. The disguise was the best decision I ever made. Well, Keisha said with a mischievous smile, second best decision. Oh, what was the first? Asking me to marry you, obviously. They both laughed, and as they drove into the night toward their future together, they carried with them the most valuable lesson either had ever learned. True love doesn't need perfect circumstances, impressive credentials, or wealthy backgrounds. True love only needs two people brave enough to see past the surface, patient enough to reveal their authentic selves, and wise enough to recognize that the most valuable treasures in life can't be bought. They can only be built through genuine connection, mutual respect, and the kind of character that shines brightest when no one important is watching. Part 8. 5 years later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of the Harrison family home, a beautiful but not ostentatious house in a diverse neighborhood that combined old and new families. Keisha stood in the kitchen, her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf, swaying gently to the music playing from the radio while she made pancakes. Little footsteps thundered down the hallway, and suddenly 3-year-old Maya burst into the kitchen, her curly hair bouncing, her smile bright as sunshine. "Mommy, Mommy, Daddy says we're going to the center today." Keisha scooped her daughter up, spinning her around. "That's right, baby. We're going to read to the kids and help with the garden." "Can I plant flowers?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "You can plant all the flowers you want, sweet girl." Andre appeared in the doorway, their 1-year-old son, Marcus Jr., perched on his hip. The baby grabbed at Andre's face, giggling as Andre pretended to nibble his fingers. "My two favorite ladies talking about gardens without me," Andre said in mock offense. "You were too busy letting M.A. pull your nose off." Keisha laughed, walking over to kiss her husband good morning. This was their life now. Andre ran the medical division of Harrison Enterprises during the week, but reserved weekends for community work. He'd established free health clinics throughout the city, personally seeing patients every Saturday morning regardless of their ability to pay. Keisha had been promoted to director of community outreach for the company, a position she'd earned through years of dedication and innovative programs that connected business success with social responsibility. They'd become known not for their wealth, but for their generosity and genuine investment in lifting others up. Later that morning, at the Riverside Community Center, a group of teenagers sat in a circle while Andre and Keisha led a workshop on leadership and character. "My dad always tells me I need to be successful," said a young man named Jamal. "But what does that even mean?" "Making money," Andre smiled, the same gentle smile he'd worn as a security guard years ago. "Let me tell you a story, Jamal. When I was finishing medical school, I could have taken a high-paying job at any hospital in the world. But I chose to come home and work for my father's company. You know why? Because it's your family business," another student guessed. "Partly," Andre admitted, "but mainly because I realized success isn't about how much you make. It's about how much difference you make." "My wife taught me that," Keisha laughed. "I didn't teach you that. You already knew it. You proved it when you dressed as a security guard to test people's character." The teenagers leaned in, fascinated, as the couple told their story. They'd shared it many times over the years, always with the same message. Authenticity, character, and integrity matter more than appearance, status, or wealth. "So you really pretended to be poor?" asked a girl named Destiny. "I really did," Andre confirmed. "And the woman who showed me kindness when she thought I had nothing is the same woman I chose to spend my life with. That tells you everything you need to know about what matters." After the workshop, as they were packing up, an unexpected visitor appeared at the community center doors. Vanessa walked in, looking nothing like the woman she'd been 5 years ago. She wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair in a natural style, her face free of heavy makeup. She looked younger, lighter, more at peace. "Hi," she said somewhat nervously. "Mrs. Patterson said you'd be here. I hope it's okay that I came." "Vanessa," Keisha said warmly, walking over to hug her. Of course it's okay. How are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. Vanessa smiled and it reached her eyes. I wanted to show you something. She pulled out her phone and showed them photos. I've been running a program for young women in underserved communities, teaching them about self-worth and healthy relationships. We just got funding to expand to 3 more cities. Andre extended his hand, which Vanessa shook. That's incredible work, Vanessa. I'm proud of you. Thank you, she said softly. And I need to say something I should have said years ago. I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry for how I treated both of you. I was bitter, desperate, and cruel. You had every right to hate me, but you chose grace instead. That changed my life. Keisha squeezed her hand. We all needed to learn different lessons. You needed to learn yours, and we needed to learn forgiveness. I'd say it worked out. I'm engaged now, Vanessa added, showing them a simple ring. To a teacher. He doesn't make much money, but he has the biggest heart I've ever known. He sees me, really sees me, and loves me anyway. That's all that matters, Andre said, smiling. That's everything. As they walked through the community center later, watching volunteers help kids with homework, elderly residents playing chess, and neighbors sharing meals, Andre pulled Keisha close. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Marrying someone whose life comes with so much attention and responsibility. Keisha looked up at him, her eyes full of love. Not for one single second. You know why? Why? Because you're still the same man who carried my boxes to my car, who swept the parking lot without complaint, who treated people with dignity even when they treated you like you were invisible. The money didn't change you because your character was already set. That's who I fell in love with. And you're still the woman who brought water to a security guard on a hot day, Andre replied. Who chose love over status, truth over convenience, character over currency. You're my hero, Keisha Harrison. They stood there for a moment, watching their children play with other kids in the center's new playground, another gift from the Harrison Family Foundation. Maya was helping a smaller child reach the monkey bars, already displaying her mother's instinct to lift others up. You know what I think about sometimes, Keisha said softly. What? What would have happened if you'd never done the disguise? If you'd shown up as the rich doctor, all polished and perfect? We probably still would have ended up together, Andre said. Your character was always real. It wasn't a performance. Maybe, Keisha conceded. But we would have spent years wondering, always questioning if the foundation was solid. The disguise gave us something most couples never get, absolute certainty that our love is built on truth. Marcus Harrison, SR, now in his 70s but still sharp as ever, arrived at the center with his driver. He'd officially retired but spent his days funding community projects and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Grandpa, Maya shrieked, running to him. Marcus scooped her up, laughing. There's my princess. Have you been helping people today? Yes, I planted flowers and read to the little kids. That's my girl, Marcus said, his eyes misty. He looked at Andre and Keisha. You two are doing exactly what her grandmother and I always dreamed this family would do. Using resources to lift communities, not just build empires. We learned from the best, Andre said, embracing his father. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the Harrison family gathered with community members for a shared meal. Rich and poor, young and old, different races and backgrounds, all sitting together at long tables, sharing food and stories and laughter. This was the real wealth, not the money in the bank or the size of the house or the prestige of the name. The real wealth was in the connections, the love, the impact, the legacy of lifting others up. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Andre and Keisha sat on their back porch, holding hands and watching the stars. Do you think Maya and Marcus will understand? Andre asked. When they're old enough to know the full story, will they understand why I did the disguise? I think they'll understand that their father valued truth over convenience, Keisha said. And I know they'll be proud that their mother loved him when she thought he had nothing to offer but his heart. That's all I ever really had to offer, Andre said quietly. The money, the name, the status, that's all just noise. The heart is what matters. "And what a heart it is," Keisha whispered, leaning her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other by stripping away all the masks and pretenses society demands. They'd built a life not on what they owned, but on who they were. And they were teaching their children the same lesson. In a world that constantly tells people their worth is tied to their wealth, their beauty, their status, or their connections, Andre and Keisha Harrison stood as living proof that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. They can only be built through genuine character, unwavering integrity, and the courage to love authentically. Their story spread through their community and beyond, inspiring other young people to look beneath surfaces, to value character over credentials, to choose substance over style. It reminded people that tests of character aren't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes they're as simple as how you treat the security guard at your workplace, the server at your restaurant, or the stranger who needs help carrying boxes to their car. And years later, when Maya Harrison was asked in school to write about her hero, she didn't write about a superhero or celebrity. She wrote about her mother, who chose love over luxury, and her father, who disguised himself as a poor man to find real wealth. A woman with a heart of gold. The essay ended with a line that became something of a family motto. Real love doesn't need perfect conditions. Real love only needs two people brave enough to be completely, honestly, beautifully themselves. And somewhere in heaven, Andre's mother smiled, knowing her son had learned the most important lesson of all. The lesson she and Marcus had lived by their whole marriage. The lesson that, regardless of how much money you have or don't have, the richest life is one lived with integrity, generosity, and authentic love. The end moral. Character reveals itself in how we treat those who can do nothing for us. True love sees the soul before the status, the heart before the wealth. The most valuable treasures in life, integrity, compassion, authentic connection, cannot be purchased. They can only be cultivated through genuine character and recognized by those wise enough to look beneath the surface.